When I started working in the 90s, the strategy for life seemed quite simple. You work hard, you get your third level education degree, you secure a job, you work hard there, you get promoted, go into management, you progress, you do well. I'm not sure that's true anymore. Even when I was younger at that stage, I realized somewhere within the first few years of my career that people who got promoted, people who were in positions of authority, were very often not the most competent or hardworking. They had different abilities to sell themselves and market themselves and give the appearance of competence. And I didn't really relate to that. My first job lasted 5 years. I was made redundant. I got another job. I went traveling for a while. Then I moved into consultancy. I remember seeing the first contractors when I was younger and thinking, that person has a skill and a competence, and the authority derives from that. And I wanted to be like that. So I set myself that task. I became a very competent ETL developer. And I had my own contracting company, a one-man band for 15 years. Various highs and lows. But overall the money was decent. It's similar to what it is now, but back then money had more value. The inflation has gone up a lot in the last 5 to 10 years. I went back into full-time work around the time of the COVID pandemic, and a lot's changed compared to having a full-time job 20, 25 years ago. Companies used to, the idea was that your personal and professional development was important to the company. That's not the case anymore. In today's workplace, it seems to be, again, more about how you market yourself, and it's less about your competence and hard work. I think the analogy I heard from a quote-unquote leadership course I was on once was that there are people who row the boat and people who steer the boat, and leaders steer the boat. And I always felt that, well, that's true, but a good steerer of the boat had to come from someone who was effectively able to row the boat. That someone who's steering the boat and has no experience of rowing doesn't necessarily make a good leader. That's kind of my view, but it's not how it works, of course, in today's world. I used to do sports, but I'm a bit older now. My knees are not so good, so I don't do sports anymore. Then I decided to, with various financial pressures and free time, I decided to start doing part-time delivery work. So I bought a motorbike and I joined up with Just Eat and Deliveroo, and I do that part-time. And a funny realization came to me, or a strange or surprising realization. That job comes with a lot of benefits. Yes, the money is not one of those, but the flexibility and the satisfaction, the immediate feedback of collecting an order, delivering to a customer, and that customer being happy to receive their fresh food is satisfying. And I do a 4-hour shift and I feel better. I do a day's work at the office, often I don't feel better. Now, I know that there's background whereby there are a lot of layoffs in tech industries. It's becoming a white collar bloodbath at the moment, and that doesn't help. But I'm in my tech role. An interesting thing I realize also is I always a little bit resented the amount of commute time I had to do before COVID came. You're spending 2 hours a day on average around Dublin commuting. I used that to my advantage a bit. I started cycling, so I'd get good exercise. But still, the weeks were very long. If you're working 5 days and you have an extra 10 hours of commute, it's a lot extra. And I always dreamed of not having to do that. Well, the pandemic came, and one of the good things that came out of the pandemic was the remote work. And I've been remote at home 99% of the time for the last 6 years. But at some stage, it began to feel less of a freedom and a little bit more like a prison, because basically my office is where I'm spending now most of my time, interacting with people only online via Teams for the most part. It feels like it's not good for the soul. And added into that now, recently we have AI, and there's more of an emphasis to work with the AI tools, interact with the AI tool to create output rather than with people. And it got me questioning really where I want to go from here. I don't have the answers. I have a job. I need the money. I have wife and kids, mortgage, all this stuff that most of us have. But if and when I'm made redundant, I guess I'm not really that worried about it as much as I would have been 10, 15 years ago. I kind of accept what may come, and what I do after that, I don't know. But being able to come here to Leitrim and spend time here is very refreshing for the soul. And so is the delivery work during the week. I'd go out maybe Wednesday, Thursday, Friday evening, and I feel better after it. So those are my thoughts. See you next time.